Hello friends, in this one I'm going to show you several examples of adding complex numbers. Let's go in the first one. So I have here that z sub 1 is equal to 2 minus I, and z sub 2 is equal to 1 plus 2i. We want to form the sum and then also visualize the sum graphically. So to form the sum, I'm going to write z sub 1 plus z sub 2. That's going to be equal to the following. You add up the real parts, so that means the 2 and the 1 from the two numbers. That will give you 2 plus 1 in that position. Then you add up the imaginary parts, in other words, like the negative I and the negative, rather positive 2i. So it's going to be negative I plus 2i in that position, and just add those up. So when you do that, it's going to tell you that z sub 1 plus z sub 2 equals 3 plus I. The reason is simple. 2 plus 1 is 3. And negative I plus 2i is just like combining like terms, basically. That's why it gives you positive I. Let's visualize this process using a graph. So this number here that I've drawn first, so this arrow, if you like, it represents the number 2 minus I. So that's 2 minus I. The 2 is the real part, negative I is like the imaginary part. So what it says is basically go 2 to the right and then 1 down. That's all it really says. Okay, that brown arrow, that represents the second number. That represents 1 plus 2i. So again, what that really means is simple English is you're going to go 1 to the right and then you're going to go 2 up. That's it. To form the sum, you basically add them the way you would add vectors. So this is what I mean. If you like, you can take the blue arrow or the brown one. It really makes no difference. Take one of them. So I'm taking the blue one and I'm moving it to the tip of the brown one. And then after that, you combine with a third arrow, the green one, that begins where, for example, they meet right here and then goes over to the tip of the copy of the blue one. And that then represents 3 plus I. So again, all that really means 3 plus I is, for the green arrow, it means 3 to the right and then 1 up, because it's 1 times I. That's the picture for this example. Let's look at the next one. It's going to look like the following. I have z sub 1 equals negative 1 plus 2i. Z sub 2 equals negative 1 minus I. Let's add them up. So it's going to be z sub 1 plus z sub 2 will be equal to the following. Negative 1 minus 1. So here all I'm doing is just negative 1 plus negative 1, which is equivalent to negative 1 minus 1. So adding up the real parts. Same thing with the 2i minus I. That comes over here into this position. Then you combine like terms normal way. So it's going to tell you that z sub 1 plus z sub 2 equals negative 2 plus 1i. That's it. The reason is negative 1 minus 1 is negative 2. 2i minus I is just 1i. That's it. Now after that, I'm going to visualize the adding addition process. So first I'm going to visualize this number. Let's see, I think that's negative 1 minus I here. The next one, that's negative 1 plus 2i. So remember, it's that way because it's negative 1 to the right. To the left if you like, negative 1. And then 2 up along the vertical axis. Then I have negative 1 minus I. When I add them, it's going to look like the following. I'm going to take, for example, the blue arrow or the brown one. Makes no difference. Take one of them and just transition it over to the tip, say, of the brown one. And when you do that, make sure you do not change the length of the copy or the orientation or direction of the copy. Preserve those two characteristics when you're doing the graphical addition part. And then when you combine them, it's going to give you this green arrow right here. So that's going to tell us that we have here negative 2 plus I as the result, essentially. So that negative 2 plus I, again, that describes the green arrow, to be clear. What it simply means is you're going to go from where they meet over here, 2 to the left, and then you're going to go 1 unit straight up because it says 1i. And that's the resultant complex number. Let's look at the next one here, because it's going to look like z sub 1 equals negative 1 minus I. Now z sub 2 I'm defining to be negative 2 minus I, just arbitrary values. So when I add them, I'm going to have z sub 1 plus z sub 2. And it's going to be here negative 1 minus 2. So I'm combining negative 1 with negative 2, the real parts of the complex numbers. And I'm going to also add up the negative I and the negative I. So it's going to give me, for that reason, negative I minus I. Simplify that a little bit. So z sub 1 plus z sub 2 will be negative 3. Because it's negative 1 minus 2, which is negative 3. And then it's going to be negative I minus I, which will give me negative 2i in that position. So that's the sum. To visualize that, we proceed as follows. So I'm going to first visualize this number, and this time I'm going to make things a bit bigger. So this represents the number negative 1 minus I. So what it means is negative 1 is 1 to the left, and the negative I means 1 down, basically. That's why it looks like that. That blue arrow, that represents the number negative 2 minus I. So it's going to look like this. Beginning from where they meet, it's as if you went 2 to the left and then 1 down. That's, if you look very carefully, you see above my head there, and also here above my head, they end at the same horizontal level. because they both have a negative I and a negative I. To add these, you can proceed as follows, graphically. Take, for example, negative 2 minus I and move it to the tip of the brown one. And when you do that, make sure that you preserve the length of the blue arrow and make sure you preserve its direction. Once you've done that, then you're going to draw this green arrow. Again, the green arrow will be drawn from where they meet all the way down to the tip of the copy of the blue arrow. So that will be the sum. In other words, that would represent negative 3 minus 2i, which is the resultant complex number, if you like. Let's do one last example. So here I'm going to have z sub 1 equals 2 minus I. Then I will have z sub 2 equals 3 minus 2i. Add up the real and imaginary parts as usual. So z sub 1 plus z sub 2 will be equal to 2 plus 3, adding up the real parts, plus negative I minus 2i. Simplify. So z sub 1 plus z sub 2 will be equal to 2 plus 3 is 5, naturally enough. And negative I minus 2i will give you negative 3i. Let's visualize this addition process a little bit. So I'm going to begin with, I believe this is 2 minus I. So that means the following. Beginning from where it begins, imagine that's the origin. The 2 means go 2 to the right. And the negative I means go 1 down. That's it. After that, I'm going to do the next number. That's 3 minus 2i. What that means is, beginning from where they meet, go 3 to the right. And because it says negative 2i, go 2 down this way. That represents 3 minus 2i. Now you're going to make a copy, say, of the blue arrow or the brown one. It makes no difference, just one of them. So make a copy. I, for some reason, always did it with the blue ones. So make a copy of the blue one. Move it to the tip of the brown one, where they end right here, where they would go this way. That would be 5 minus 3i. And that would be represented with that green arrow in that position. And that would be then the final resultant complex number. So these are all different examples of adding complex numbers in different locations throughout the complex plane. But that is it. I hope this has been helpful. Please have a like and subscribe. I will see you in another video.